Okay, I usually forget that, so that was a big move for me. Well, go ahead, Julie, go ahead and start and maybe introduce yourself. I know some of your background, but I would prefer you to share the
Sure.
specific.
Well, my name is Julia, and I am a professor. I have the rank of full professor at Bellevue University in Nebraska, and I'm the director of the Doctorate of Business Administration degree. I'm also the director of marketing degrees and concentrations. So we have undergraduate, graduate in marketing. I've been teaching since 2000, and then I've been teaching online since 2007. And what I would like to do is go through my presentation, and then after each slide, if you have questions, then we can just talk about it. So I think that would work really well. So what I'm going to talk about today is I'm going to talk about, excuse me, establishing an instructor presence in your online course, creating a virtual office, integrating videos, podcasts, and Zoom, and then how to keep organized in your courses, some simple tips and tricks that I've learned that you could adjust, adapt to for your own use in your own online courses. So for the first slide, I'd like to say for instructor presence, what I've really noticed in my courses is that I want to be consistent, I want to be intentional, and I want to be predictable. So overall, I established consistency is that I try to be in my courses at least out of the 7 days, at least every other day. You know, and I try mostly Monday through Friday to have a strong presence, maybe 4 out of 5 of those days, but at least 3 out of 5 of those days, and have something where they are seeing me in the class. Because what I did years ago in 2007 was I was going into my course so many times to check for questions, to check, you know, student updates, reading their posts, but they just never knew I was there. And it got to the point where it's like, okay, well, I don't want to respond to every discussion board post because then it seems like I'm kind of taking over the classroom. And it seemed like once I posted, it would kind of halt the discussion, almost like the students thought, okay, well, the professor has spoken, you know, we better not say anything else. So I kind of halted back from that and joined when there was already conversation going, but yet I thought in my online courses, when they log into them and see them, I want to have a consistent presence. So I'll talk a little bit more about how I use a consistent presence a little bit later. Also, I want to be intentional about what I'm doing. And what that means to me is that I want to plan out what I'm doing ahead of time. And mostly it's kind of a combination of different things. So not always doing the same thing all the time. Later in the presentation, I'll show you a matrix that I created for the courses so I can kind of keep track of what I'm doing. And then also I want to be predictable. So students know that they can count on me for certain things. Now, it's not a must for me, but I plan out my week, and typically my students, I grade on Wednesdays. Wednesdays is a heavy grading day for me, and I like that. You know, it kind of, I get through that day, and then I have, if I need to catch up on Thursday and Friday, then I can do that. But mostly my students know if they have a paper or a discussion board that I'm going to be grading on Wednesday. So it's kind of predictable. They can read my feedback, and then they can prepare for their work the next weekend based on what I did before. That's my first bullet point. The second one is showing your presence on various days of the week. And in there, I kind of just have a little note about, hang on a second, I have to move this. About, you know, if you have all class feedback written on Monday, then post replies to students on Tuesday, or on Wednesday have a video, and just kind of mixing it up so that it's different and it's not all the same every day. And then the third bullet point is just really about different things that I can post in my class, such as articles, newsletters, on the discussion board. This week, I found out that we have quite a few Disney students at Bellevue University, and 28,000 students were laid off. So that, or finding out that they're gonna, you know, lose their job potentially. So I posted something to my virtual office and just telling them that I'm thinking about them, and then I'm here for them, and they can reach out to me if they, you know, if they want assistance. And then some other things that I've done too is, you know, if I find out there's for example, this semester, I have an overwhelming amount of accounting majors in this Principles of Marketing class. So I thought, well, I know there's accounting groups on campus, there's other groups on campus. So I posted when they had their Zoom meetings so that they would be able to have, that information and be able to attend it. And then the last one is just about cohorts. And our cohorts at Bellevue University the students stay together. So it's kind of really easy to go in there and find out what kind of jobs they're interested in and things like that. And if I see things, I might post those. So again, just having different types of instructor presence. So are there any questions on that?
No, but may I say one thing, and that is if you go with your PowerPoint and click on slideshow, then you can make it full view.
Okay, thank you.
And then we can see it better, because right now it's so little.
Okay, sorry about that. And
No,
you know what?
okay.
Thank you for telling me that.
So if you go to slideshow,
Thank you.
and then just click on from current slide. There you go. Perfect. Yay.
Thank you. And see, on my screen, it's larger, so I thought it was the same as yours. Okay, so we'll go to the next slide. This is in a Blackboard shell. And what I do in the shell is I create a virtual office. I don't always have a picture of myself in there. Sometimes I put, like if there's a holiday coming up, like Halloween, I'll put Peanuts Halloween thing in there for a picture and just kind of change that up too. But one thing I wanted to talk about is the very top one. And this is something that has really helped me because I teach multiple courses online. So what I do at the top is I have at the very, you'll notice right here, it says students and then it has their names and then it has the weeks and it's who I'm responding to. So that is in the discussion board, we're required to respond to 2 students per week. Now this is a really small class, the one that I'm showing you today. This is a doctoral class. So, and they're taking it's a doctoral research class. So there's, I think if I'm not mistaken, there might be about 7 or 8 students or something like that. So I kind of keep track of who I'm responding to every week. And then when I'm teaching my other classes, I don't have to memorize, okay, who did I respond to this week and who haven't I responded to? Because I want to make sure that I respond to each student at least once in the class. Now you'll see here, week 5, I responded to Jason. Then week 6, it was Jason. Week 7 was Jason. He was really on this certain topic and that's why, but you can see the other people kind of spread out. And then you'll see week 2, I responded to everyone. So that's something that I do too. There might be 1 week or 2 weeks that I respond to everyone. And then beyond that, kind of make sure that everyone is responded to at least once in the course. And in this, this is my virtual office that I have. So when students want to ask me questions, they can post this. Now you'll see there's 56 total posts and this was screenshot in the 7th week. So this is a very active class where they're asking me questions, where I'm posting things, talking to them, about some of the things I just said in the last slide. Because this is a research class, I'm kind of giving them helpful hints, I'm giving them podcasts and things like that. But overall, I would say having the students listed and keeping track of who I responded to is a very big time saver for me because typically I will have more than 1 class I'm teaching. I typically will have 4 courses per semester. Any questions about that one? Okay. The next one.
How do you set that up? So you set it up in each class like that?
I do.
Is it easy to set up or is it?
It's easy because what I'm doing is, I've taught in Canvas too. And really what I'm doing is just setting up a link, a discussion board in there. But what I'm doing is I'm closing it so that the students can't see it. So that's just only viewable to me. And again, it's just a quick time saver. And it's helped me too when I'm at campus, I'm at home, I'm traveling, I'm doing these things. Well, I know who I've responded to, so it just saves me a lot of times. I used to have it years ago on a piece of paper for every class. Okay. That was back, when people would have to email you their papers too. But anyway, so the next slide is about integrating videos and podcasts. And I kind of use videos to me as something that I find off the internet or a publisher's website, or it could be, something that is, I don't know, interesting or related to the topic. The videos that I'm posting to that doctoral research class is Creswell is the author of the book. So I found a couple of his videos that were absolutely outstanding where he talks about different research and things like that. So that kind of fills that video one. And then the podcasts are usually just me talking to them. Usually I will use a podcast and it will be an introduction to the course. It will be something that's maybe a little bit more difficult topic that I can explain more in depth, or I can share an interesting article or study, just like, at the beginning of a face-to-face class where I would start a class and I would say, oh, I read in the such and such journal about this. Well, I would do something like that. Or I can help them with an upcoming assignment, a larger assignment, things like that. What I found, again, as a helpful hint, is when I create a podcast, I create it so that I can use it again. So for example, if in this research class that I'm teaching now, I'm going to teach this class again, in another year and a half. So if I'm talking to them about a project coming up that they have, or a paper, I want to be able to make a really nice one so that, a year and a half from now, I don't have to do that again, and it's going to save me time. So I'm really particular about how I save my podcast. So I save them as class number. And so this one would be DBA 725. And then I actually will name it the week. And I'll say something like week 2, project helpful hints, or something like that, so that I know exactly what it is. And then I also keep track of that on a Word document, which I'll talk about a little bit later. So being specific with my podcasts and knowing what I'm doing helps me a lot. And then I post those mostly to my virtual office in the week that they are able to use them. Okay, for Zoom, the first one is one that most of us are doing. We change our backgrounds from time to time just to kind of keep things a little bit lively. When I do Zoom, I usually try to have a PowerPoint. I have had open Zoom time for office hours for my students, especially when the pandemic first started. And what I would do is I would, if they wanted to talk to me privately about something, I would put them in a waiting room, and then they had 20 minutes per student. So they would kind of sign up for times, and that's how I would use those breakout rooms. But other than that, most of the time when I use Zoom, I have a PowerPoint and I have a demonstration. So during those, I will ask for student input, and I try to go round robin whoever's in the class. And that way people aren't all speaking at the same time in a larger class. If it were the 7 students or like it is today, I think it's perfectly fine. Again, I use Zoom for major projects. The one thing that we started doing over this last year is when we're inviting guest speakers. There's a store in Omaha, and there's a person who is Kohl's department store, and the person who invented the Kohl's dollars is from Omaha. So we thought, wouldn't that be cool to invite him as a guest speaker? But if we have him as a guest speaker and we have the students in the Zoom session and they're taped, we can't use it again because of FERPA. But we can just have a Zoom session just with him and us, 1 or 2 of us. We can ask him questions, and then guess what? We can use that again. So then now, once we've taught it one time, a year from now, when that class rolls around again, then we have this guest speaker. We can put it into we can put it to the virtual office. We can, have students have their education enriched. They can also even ask questions. And we've thought about going back to that guest speaker and say, okay, these are the questions that we have, and then just have him email us back the answers and then post those in the class. So again, just trying to reuse some of the things that we're doing because it takes a while to have those. I also use Zoom, and I provide all class feedback for major assignments. So say, for example, they had a paper or project. I've used it where I've gone in and maybe they didn't understand something quite right. So instead of bringing up a paper, which to me, I couldn't do that, I could bring up an example of something that was really, this is really the way that you should have worked that problem, or something like that. I've also used it where there was a topic where maybe they really weren't sure what they were supposed to do with it. And I would just make a really quick Zoom session and say, okay, these are your options and this is what you can do, and then post that in the class. Any questions about that slide?
I was just curious, our distance ed coordinator, one of the things they're pushing, and maybe Rayetta, you've heard, I don't know, they're suggesting that we don't use a virtual background as much anymore because it doesn't make us feel quite so inviting to the students. Has anyone else heard that?
Yeah, I have heard that too. And to me, I think if you have, like, the one person on here has a green screen and it's really nice, it looks very welcoming. But I've seen some ones where at first I think they were kind of fun, where it was like, some character from a Disney movie or something like that. It was like, oh, that's so funny. He's trying to, just shake it up a little bit. I think that's fine. But I think consistently people identify with you more if it seems natural. So if it's not this wild, background, then I think it's fine. But yes, I have heard that.
Yeah, I just found this one the other day. I says, I can't wait to use it.
That one is probably the most realistic one.
That is great.
Can you send us that?
Yes, Rayetta, we all want to use that one.
Well, the problem with that, using your own background, is that, well, my office does kind of look like the one that you showed. And so instead, I want to put, I won't use this one that I have behind me right now. This is my cat. He's yawning. He's not growling. But what I do is I'll show a funny one like this to my students, and then I'll show another one or whatever. And then I even ask my students to show me their pets and stuff like that, just to kind of try to make it seem, try to get that personal connection sort of thing. So
I like that, Patricia. When the pandemic first started, I had a thing with the class. I said, okay, everybody get your pets. And it was the first 5 minutes we'd go around the room. Instead of really saying, oh, hi, this is, me, they would just say, this is my cat, or this is my dog, so and so. And it was just kind of fun because I could take attendance and it was fun for them. So I like that. Okay, on to the very exciting topic of the Microsoft Word document. I depend on Word a lot for my courses. I put as much stuff in there to help me keep organized because, I don't teach the same classes every semester. Sometimes I teach a class once a year. So a year from now, what did I do in that class and how can I remember that? So that's what I keep the Word document for. I keep organized with notes per week. For instance, I might have, and actually in my document, I have it in red font. It says week 1, and then everything I need to know for week 1 is under there. So if I have a podcast that I used for helpful hints on a project that's due week 10 or something like that, that will be in there. If I have written notes, I'll have that in there for the students. Okay, this week, I want you to work on this because, week 3, something else is coming up. So to me, the more organized that I can be, the better. I've also put links to articles in there, links to videos, all kinds of things just to help me organize. So every time I pull it up and the class starts, I have that. I also have a separate Word document for all class feedback. So I have one in there that has the feedback that I post to my students because I have feedback every week. So I don't have, sometimes it's written, sometimes it's Zoom, recorded so that they have the words. And so usually I will have those 2 documents for each class. Any questions on that? Not? not too complicated, just a way for me to stay organized. And then this is kind of the thing I was talking about before, is when I create a class, I'll create this and put it in my Word document. It will have the weeks of the course, and it will have what I'm doing in there. So I can look at the whole class and I can say, okay, this is a 10-week class. And I know that in week 1, I'm going to have a Zoom session. I'm going to invite my students. We're going to talk about the class. Week 2, I'm going to post a journal article. I already am going to have that in that Word document. I have an expert video. And since I just talked about that research class, I have a Creswell video where he talks about something in qualitative research. I know that I'm going to post that. And then I also have some tables and figures that I'm going to post into the class. So sometimes I'll have more columns too for other things that I think of that I can put in the class. But it's a way for me to look at this class and say, okay, I don't have a video every single week. I don't have a journal article every single week, or tables and figures or Zoom. So I did a study years ago, and in the program that I teach in, there's an MBA class, and there used to be 6 sections every semester. So there's 1 face-to-face and 5 online. And so I thought, you know what, this is a perfect opportunity for me to conduct a study to see what students think of this. So in a couple of the classes, I had videos every single week, and they were me giving the feedback of, okay, instead of written, this is how you did on week 1, so-and-so. And then the second class had written typed feedback. And then the third section, it had almost like a heartbeat. There was a video kind of like this, video week 2, then there would be a video week 4, then a video week 6. It was kind of like a heartbeat. And what I found through this study, and I did it for an entire year, was that the students responded the most when I had it so it wasn't consistent. It wasn't every single week. There was, it's kind of like the students having a PowerPoint every single week. After so many weeks, they just don't review the PowerPoint anymore. And I've had, in my classes anyway, maybe not, other ones, but when I had those podcasts or the Zoom or whatever every single week, they weren't paying attention to them, because it was like, okay, this is the same old thing. Here we go again. She's talking, I don't need to see this. But when it was every other week or every third week, it was like, oh my gosh, she's put a podcast in here, of feedback. I better watch this. And I went into Blackboard and I could see it from the statistics of how many people watched it, who watched it, how many times they watched it. What was interesting is they would watch it more than once. So that's kind of why I came up with this chart, to kind of help me figure out a way so that I wasn't overkilling some of the information, and I was spreading it out and providing variety in the online courses. Any questions about that?
So could you send us that chart or can we get your PowerPoint?
Yes, Nancy has it. Whoops. Okay, that was it. Okay, this is open time for you to ask me questions, since that was pretty quick.
Okay, let's show backgrounds.
I think there's a variety of ways that you can let students know that you're engaged in their success. One of the teachers in our department, she calls all her students scholars. So when she posts a discussion or an announcement, she'll always refer to them as scholars. And so, making that connection, right? Because community college, most students don't think that they're scholars. So she's trying to promote that success image and personal contact. I think that was a great idea.
Yeah, it is wonderful. Does anybody else have anything in their classroom that they're doing online that would help others here today?
Well, I really started using Zoom consistently in my online classes. I have actually 2 sections of one class. One, it would have been face-to-face, if we were meeting on campus, but it's remote, and then an online section. And so I do the class on Zoom, I record it and make it available to both classes. But I invited all the students from both sections to the Zoom. So, and I haven't required attendance. So, so I don't have to worry about the attendance necessarily, but they've got access to the recording. And so I find that the students that really need that extra come to the Zoom. And then I started doing office hours, consistent office hours every week, one during the day and one in the evening, so that the online students who are working have an office hour that they can come to. And I'm finding that the students that need that also are taking advantage of that. So trying to meet, you know, a wider variety of learning needs.
Mhm. That's wonderful.
I always do a chat question of some sort. That's how I take attendance. So I put a question up and I have them go into chat and answer, because we get a copy of chat in our Zoom when we tape, and I didn't realize that at first, but that's the way I take attendance.
That's great.
Up here in Butte County, our students have been through a lot the last several years. We had the Oroville Dam scare with evacuations. We had the Camp Fire. We're still suffering from frequent power outages on windy days, PG&E shutting down power to prevent another fire. And then of course, we've got the latest fires just taking out another one of our communities, and COVID on top of it. So our students are pretty stressed to the max right now, emotionally. So one of the things that I have started implementing is just the simplest thing, but it's a way for me to communicate with every student directly every single week, is at the end of the week, I just have a short little text box assignment. We have Canvas. I just set it up as a text entry, and it's just worth a few points. It's just a weekly checkup where I just ask them, let me know how your week went. You know, if everything went great, you can just say, hey, I got it, and you're good. But if there's something else you want to ask me about or tell me about, or you think you'd want to share, feel free to do that. And I get such a variety of responses. I find out what's going on in their personal lives when they think they want to share it. You know, I know about people who have lost family members. You know, it's just a place for them to kind of reach out and connect, and for me to be able to respond to them one-on-one every single week. So if they just gave me an I got it response, I still always reply using their name. In Canvas, I just use speed grader. So it doesn't take me much time at all to zip through and say a quick little greeting back to everybody. And then a few longer responses were needed for those students who, you know, really had, you know, a tough week or something. And I get a lot of thanks for that. You know, I think that they are feeling kind of disconnected from their instructors and from their peers. And it's just one more way to have a really easy connection with every single student every single week. So that's one thing that's been really effective for me.
That's wonderful, Michelle. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I used to do it every single week, but maybe it was had a check-in like that, but it seemed like it was too much and I had too many students missing it. But then it was a different time, so maybe students are now feeling that need. But I still do it. I do a check-in. I just do it maybe 4 times a semester, so maybe once a month. And then I ask them to tell me, you know, like what you said, how things are, what you said, Michelle, how things are going. I ask them to give me their, you know, what have they completed so far, and then how they are planning to complete future upcoming assignments. And then I ask them to write 2 points from the reading that week. And I think, and I really try to do that a little more detailed, at least for me, and that's probably why maybe they won't, you know, it's a little more detailed than what Michelle was doing. But I try to include the, you know, what have you done, you know, what have you completed, and what is your plan going forward, to get them to help them organize their thinking about the class and to organize going forward, because a lot of students, you know, just kind of do things haphazardly, and hopefully I'm helping them learn to be a little more organized about it. But I get really great response from my students who like that I make that connection, and then I always respond to the students, and so they feel like I'm making that personal connection, and that works really good. And then I've started doing the Zoom thing also, but since it's an online class, it's not, you know, it can't be required, but I've been doing it with, they get 5 extra credit points if they show up, to try to give them a little more incentive. And I think that helps also. And for those who need that personal connection, it helps. Those
Do
are
you
just,
provide extra credit points for the check-ins?
no, that's actually I actually grade those. So
How about
those,
you, Michelle?
I do too. Most of my assignments are worth 100 points. The check-ins are just worth 2 points, but they're an assignment and they show up on the assignment list. And if the students pay attention to nothing else, they're looking at those assignments that they have to check off every week. So they do get them done. But I try to make it really kind of low, you know, stress as far as, you know, I just kind of keep it quick and light if they feel like they just need to check it off their list. But it is the space where I learn the most about my students this semester.
Yeah. I like the idea too of providing just a little bit of extra credit for the Zoom to encourage them to be there. I have found, you know, when there are big projects, I have a lot of attendance at the Zoom, but when they think, oh, this isn't, you know, some of the classes that it's a case study, you know, they've done that before. So the attendance is not as high as the other ones.
The other thing I've done this semester for office hours is, you know, I debated, you know, do I just have a traditional office hour every day and I just sit in Zoom waiting for people to show up? And I did a little bit of that last semester when we switched to COVID, and I was just mostly sitting there by myself, and people weren't showing up then, but they wanted other times. So now I do have an official hour every day, but I really open up my schedule a lot more to students through Calendly. So it's linked in my syllabus. It's linked in several places in the course. So they know that they can just click on my Calendly appointment, syncs with my Google Calendar. So any other appointments that I have are in there. Don't have to touch Calendly again once I set it up. If I throw a time, you know, I'm going to step out for lunch, for example, I just throw a quick little lunch item on my Google Calendar, and it takes that off my Calendly time available to students. So students can come in and they can book different time spots with me. They get an automatic response because it syncs up with ConferZoom. So they get an automatic response with a link to our private Zoom session with a reminder email. And it's just been working so well. It allows me to really open up more time from my day to students with very little management on my end.
That's wonderful.
Michelle, do you have the paid version of the?
I did decide to go with the
Calendly?
paid version only because I wanted to have, you know, if you keep the free, you can do everything free, but you can only have one appointment time with one set of rules. And I wanted to go ahead and extend my hours into the late afternoon, early evening, but I had more rules for that. Like I wanted more time in advance. If they were going to do that, they needed to book that a little bit early, have more longer in advance with me. And I was only going to allow 2 of those kinds of appointment times a day. So I did go ahead and bite the bullet and paid for the paid version so I could have some more flexibility with that.
Yeah, I use that as well, but I only use the free one. No one's used it this term so far. But usually it used to be on my whiteboard, so people would just make note of it and then they would make the appointment.
Yeah.
One thing that I did for those of you who are Canvas users, I know that Zoom, you know, is our popular tool that we use, but in Canvas, in your navigation pane, if you can create an external link. Canvas lets you do one external link per class. And so I did that and attached it to my recurring office hours. It's just an open meeting. I don't have hours. It's just a nonstop recurring meeting. And so they can click on that link, and then there's a waiting room. So it'll tell me that somebody's waiting if I'm not in Zoom already. So they always can just go to that navigation pane, and they know that they can click on that and get to me quickly. There's a little bit of a delay, but it's worked pretty well in the courses that I've used it. I just call it virtual office hour.
That's wonderful.
Where do you go to add an external link, Nancy?
It's in the settings on the apps. I think it's called
Okay.
apps, the tab.
Okay.
Yeah. And it just has a little arrow, a blue kind of icon with an arrow. And then it'll ask for the link. And the link is basically to your Zoom meeting. So, and you can name it anything you like.
Okay, cool.
Any other comments? Well, thank you all for having me. This has been really nice. It's 9:37 in Nebraska. And it's pretty dark out, so it's kind of a little bit dark here in my room too. So it's been wonderful being with you, and thank you for having me, and good luck with your courses. I'm sure Nancy will send out the PowerPoint if you're interested in it.
Thanks, Julia.
Thank you.
I just put in the chat a link to a presentation me and Lynn and Sosha did at the CBEA conference this February. So we had like 20, I think it was it 30, Lynn? 30 digital tools for teaching and learning. And so there's a link to it that I provided. So if you guys ever get a chance, play in there, and there's some good resources that you can use in the classroom.
Thank you, Keith.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I think we each picked 10. So there were
Well,
30.
thank you all for joining us, and especially thank you to Julia for preparing the presentation and delivering it this evening. I think we can all probably walk away with something to use. I made some notes as we were talking. So thanks for sharing. And this is the best avenue for us. We are going to have, just if you want to put this on your calendar, I don't remember if I put it in the newsletter or not, but on October 27th, we're going to have a virtual networking event for CBEA, so we can all just, you know, hopefully do some sharing time and see and connect with people that we might not have seen for quite some time, at least since last February for some of us. So we were so glad we got our conference in when we did, so that we could pre-pandemic. But thank you all again for joining, and especially Julia. Appreciate that.
Bye,
Thank
everybody.
you, Julia. Thank you. Thank you, Nancy. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, everyone, have a good evening,
You
and
too.
good luck on your weekend and your next week, whatever brings.